What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today we're talking Fantasy Premier League top tips. These are things that I've kind of learned over the last 9-10 years of playing FPL, which help have a good season. Obviously, there are some things you can't affect. Sometimes you just get unlucky, but this will try and narrow down the chances of that happening. Obviously, there will be some stuff I miss, and I'm sure you guys have got loads of your own really good tips as well. So let's get a discussion going in the comments below. Leave your favourite 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, or even 5 tips which help you have a good season. And then everyone else who's maybe newer to FPL or wants to try and improve their rank can take a look at that. And obviously, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like. Otherwise, we'll jump straight into it. So first up is to be flexible. And a lot of people say this every single year, that they're going to go into the season and be more flexible. But they end up not doing that. Maybe holding grudges, maybe not being happy with things that went wrong. And just basically, sometimes you get like rage transfers and things like that. So I think be flexible, but also be a bit more cautious. So if something goes wrong for you, which will happen, you're not going to likely, unless you're going to win FPL, which is really hard to do, then you're probably not going to make every single decision right. You want to make as many decisions right as possible to get that high kind of top 10k, top 5k finish. To get absolutely everything right would be pretty damn difficult. So don't panic if you get things wrong. Just make sure you're flexible in your thinking. So if something goes wrong at the weekend, don't make your transfer straight away. Wait until the end of the week to make them. Don't hold grudges as well. A lot of people, I'll hear this all the time. X player didn't do well for me when I wanted him to do well for me. I'm never getting him again. Maybe there's 1 or 2 times when you've brought in a player like Callum Wilson springs to mind. Maybe Richarlison. Where they've been doing really well, you've brought them in and they've stopped doing well. Well, they didn't just do that on purpose. Don't hold a grudge. If they look like really good options at the start of the season, which I think both of those aforementioned players do, Wilson and Richarlison, then there's no reason not to bring them in if you think they're going to do well. So don't hold grudges. Take hits when needed. Be flexible with hits. Don't just say, I'm not taking any all season. Don't be in a situation where you're taking one every week. Take them when they're needed. And for me, a hit is needed when there's lots of injuries, you don't really have a good squad that you want to put out, and you want to make maybe 1 or 2 transfers, then take a hit if it's for the long term. So if you're just going to bring a player in for 1 week, then they've got to do really well in that week to repay the hit. And it gets tough to predict that every week. If you look at anywhere which does basically predictions on who's going to be the highest scorers that week, it's very rare that they nail it every week. So don't take a hit for a player that you're going to then transfer out straight away. But if someone you really want to bring in, for someone who's doing awful, you want to bring in a player who's maybe in a bit of a high patch and scoring really well, and you're going to want to keep him for the next 4, 5, 6 game weeks, then definitely, if you need to take the hit, then do it. Just be flexible. Don't restrict yourself to one way of playing or the other. And then just trust yourself. If if you've done something wrong, like I said, you may get things wrong, then be flexible in changing your approach, changing your plan, changing your strategy. Just trust yourself. Don't go and... There's obviously lots of stuff you can go out and read about FPL, and the irony is you're doing that right now by watching this. There is a lot of sources out there, but ultimately you need to trust yourself, be flexible enough in your thinking that you are going to make the right decision every now and again, hopefully more often than not, and just back yourself and just go with it. And you'll hear a lot of people talking about that because a lot of time people will just watch and read and listen to too much stuff and they let other people make the decisions for them. Yes, you should consume FPL content. At the end of the day, it's your choice to make. So trust yourself and be flexible. So everyone has a different opinion on prices and whether you should build value at the start of the season to then have a better team going forward and more money to play with. I'm not really a fan of chasing value. If you pick the right players, they'll build value anyway for you. At the start of the season, that's probably the only time that I will make an early transfer for a price rise, because obviously every 0.1 you miss at the start of the season, if a player goes up by 0.1 million or down by 0.1 million, that does affect your ability to buy the next player. But that's going to happen at some point. You can't go through the whole season making early transfers just to chase those 0.1 millions. And once a player does go down or does go up 0.1 million, then it doesn't matter if the next 4 do that as well, because it's going to cost you an extra $500,000 anyway, which is probably what you'll have to make by selling a player to be able to make that purchase. So I don't chase value that often. I do think in the opening kind of 3-4 weeks is probably an okay time to do it. But you want to leave your decisions as late as possible, because you can get extra info by the end of the week, info from training, maybe minor injuries that have been picked up, possibly team news from journalists and stuff like that. So I don't like chasing value too much, even at the start of the season personally, but I think if you're going to do it, that might be the best time. Don't let a price dictate your decision. Unless you're absolutely sure that the player you're thinking of bringing in is one you want to get. Don't do it just because the price is going up or down. I just think sometimes it's better to let fate decide. If it goes up, you get a different player. If you're absolutely sure that's the one you want. There's no real other matches to play. Like sometimes players have cup games or European games. The potential to get injured in something like that, or for some team news to come up. So, for example, they might not get injured, but another player might get injured, which means they're going to play further forward, or someone else is going to come in who might be a better option. So, I like leaving price changes to the end of the week, transfers to the end of the week, and I don't really worry about price changes too much. But if you do want to make note of them, especially again at the start of the season when maybe that's the best time to chase value. Make a note of price rises and falls. As soon as the season comes along, there's sites like fplstatistics.co.uk which will monitor price rises and will give you an indication of when a player is going to rise or fall in price. Now, they're not necessarily 100% accurate all the time. They get better as the season goes on, but they give you a good indication. But I wouldn't let them make the decision for you, because sometimes you'll see a player's about to rise and then they don't. You bring them in, and they might get injured, or you might get some team news which affects or would have affected that decision, and then you might regret it. So that's my personal opinion. A lot of people have got different opinions, and I'm sure they'll leave a comment below letting me know. So yeah, let me know what you think. But for me, I don't really worry about price rises too much, especially after the first few game weeks. So I can't believe I've not made a separate video about chips yet, because they are something that I could talk about for ages. So I'll try and keep this brief. And basically give you my opinion on when I will probably look to use the chips. Not exact game weeks, but kind of a particular strategy that I have. Obviously, you don't have to agree, but this is my opinion. So wildcards, you get two. You get one in the first half of the season and one in the second half of the season. For the second wildcard, so for the second half of the season, I will save it around blanks and double game weeks. So this would be around game week 28 to 35. Double game weeks is basically when a team has missed out in a blank game week, so maybe they've had a European fixture or a cup semi-final or whatever it might be, and because they couldn't play their Premier League game and it was rearranged, they don't play in that week, and then it gets moved to a different game week where they'll play twice, so that's a double game week. So they can be quite hard to manage, and they can also be quite profitable for points, especially in those double game weeks. So I save my wild card around that time. For the first wild card, I think there's a couple of ways you can play it. I don't think there's any harm doing it after 3 or 4 game weeks. You get a lot of info in those opening game weeks. Maybe players are performing better than expected, worse than expected. Maybe there's a player that started that we weren't expecting, and just general form and stuff like that, formations. And you do get some of that in pre-season, but not necessarily all of it. So once you know that, and once you know what mistakes you've made with your opening squad, you could change in the first 3 or 4 game weeks. But if you're doing well, I don't see any harm in saving it. And after that point, you basically use it when you need it. When you've got kind of 4 or 5 players that are maybe injured, not doing well. There's other players coming into form that you don't have. And if you need to make a whole bunch of changes, it's probably better to just do it with your wildcard, especially if it's early on. So that's when I tend to use it. Free hit is basically like the wildcard. You can completely switch your team as long as it's within budget, but you only get it for that one game week. So if you're in game week 8 and you hit your free hit button, for game week 9, you'll get a different team. But then for game week 10, it'll revert back to the game week 8 team. So again, I tend to save this for around the blank and double game weeks. It is a little bit boring having to wait that long to use it, but they really help manage those blank and double game weeks. Bench boost you basically want to use after a wild card, or maybe even in game week 1. You want to be able to set up your bench for the best fixtures. It probably in reality is only worth 16 to 20 points, so I wouldn't completely overhaul your squad just to make the most of it. I tend to use it towards the end of the season again for those wild cards, because we've built up a bit of team value and we can have better benches. But I don't see an issue with using it in game week 1 if you've got a decent enough bench. If you're like me and you're putting all your money in your first 11 and you've got bench players that might not even play, then it's obviously not worth it. But if you're going for a different strategy, then you absolutely can. And then triple captain, I think it's fine in a single or a double game week. I will save it for the double game weeks because I want that high of trying to hit that big captain score. But it doesn't always work like that. I've never had more than 9 points from it. I'm absolutely rubbish. But there are people that have captained the likes of Aguero, Sanchez and Kane who've hit 25 points, which is 75 in total. So the triple captain basically gives you 1 extra captain score over your normal captain. But if a player's in form, they're playing a weak side and it's a single game week, there is no harm in doing that either. Patience is so important in FPL, and I've kind of already touched on it. I think not making rage transfers is almost a skill. And a rage transfer would basically be when a player doesn't do too well for you at the weekend. Maybe they miss a glorious chance, they blank for the second week in a row, and you really just want to transfer them out on Saturday, even though you've got the whole week to get more information. So I tend to try and be as patient as possible. Players will not always score when you want. Obviously, you want them to bring them in against the weaker teams and the better fixtures. and hope they will score. But it doesn't always happen in the first game week, the second game week. And generally, when you bring a player in, you want to do it for someone that you want to keep for the kind of 4 to 6 game weeks. And really then it's what do they score over all those game weeks rather than what do they score in the opening game week. Yes, it is much more fun and much easier if they do score in the first game week or get an assist or a clean sheet or whatever it might be, but it doesn't always happen. Don't make drastic changes. If you have got a plan, then of course be flexible. But if you're completely going against what you originally thought about just because of one thing that happened or a couple of things that happened that didn't quite go to plan, then making drastic changes is probably something you should kind of basically just rest on, just think about it for a few days, come back and see if you still want to make the same decision. Generally, if you're annoyed at FPL, the next day it won't quite feel so bad. So try and not make any drastic changes straight away. I like to make final decisions late. Again, I've already kind of touched on this. By the end of the week, basically, if you can wait till Saturday, you've pretty much got all the information you're going to get. And there will be times when an injury won't be spoken about or a manager has a press conference, then they have a training session and a player picks up an injury and you don't hear about it. And that is frustrating. But you're trying to give yourself the best chance. So I always try and make my decisions on a Friday or a Saturday. Have an idea of what you want to do, but wait till you've got all the info to do it. And just remember that you made that choice for a reason. If you build your game week 1 squad and it doesn't do very well in the opening game week, just remember you picked those players for more than just that opening game week. Yes, if after 2 or 3 weeks they're still not performing, maybe you could wild card, start transferring some of them out, but have some patience. Lastly, and I know some people will hate this, they'll say it's boring, but have a safe captaincy option, 1 or 2 for me. For example, I'll probably start the season with Salah and Sterling. That's why Salah is on the screen. Reliability is key. They can make a bad week okay and a good week great simply by hauling. Maybe if they score 10 points, they get 20. If they score a hat-trick, that's maybe 30 points plus. I think going for a safe captaincy is the best way. If you want to go for differentials and punts and stuff, then you can do that with other players. I just think if you're maybe punting on a player you're not sure is going to do well, maybe you're hoping they'll do well, they've got a really good fixture. For example, Lucas Moura in game week 1, if he plays Aston Villa at home, is a great fixture, but he's already a punt because you're not sure exactly how they're going to line up. So to then captain him as well is an even bigger punt. You're kind of relying on him not only doing well, even when you're not too sure, but then to also get a haul for a captaincy. So players like Salah and Sterling, Kane even maybe, Aguero, they score points reliably, and I think as much as we want those big hauls, those kind of 15 plus points hauls, getting anything from your captain from kind of 7 or 8 points and above is great. And these kind of players like Salah, like Sterling, do that more often or not. So I think over the course of the season, it's a really good idea to go for safe captaincy. Of course, if you're chasing towards the end of the season, you might want to go a bit different, but from the off, I definitely like to play it safe. So that's my top tips. I'm sure you've got loads more, like I said at the start of the video. So if you do, make sure you leave a comment below. If you enjoyed it or if this helped you out in any way, let me know and give the video a thumbs up. That's always appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here. Getting very close to the start of the season now. There's loads of other content if you want to watch it already, and there's loads more to come in the run up to game week 1 and beyond throughout the entire season. So hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.